Before the world had a name, before sky arched above earth, before even the gods knew themselves, there was only darkness. An endless silence stretched across the primeval waters of none, cold, formless, and eternal. No wind stirred, no heartbeat echoed. Existence waited, holding its breath. Then, from within that infinite void, something stirred. A single spark awakened, not born of parents, not shaped by hands. It rose by its own will, a consciousness igniting itself in the abyss. This was Ra, the first light, the one who came into being simply because he chose to exist. As Ra opened his eyes, darkness recoiled, the waters shimmered, light spilled outward, pushing back chaos that had ruled since forever. With that first glow, time began to move. Shadows learned fear, silence learned sound. Ra did not just shine, he commanded. His presence carried order, power, and purpose. Where his light touched, reality took shape. The universe listened, waiting for his voice. This was not merely the birth of a god, it was the birth of creation itself. Every sunrise that would ever follow, every day, every age, every civilization began here, in this first moment of light, when Ra arose alone from the darkness and declared without words, "Let there be existence."
Before the sun had a path, before the sky knew how to arch above the earth, there was none, the primeval waters of chaos. Not an ocean, not a sea, but an endless, formless abyss stretching beyond thought or direction. There was no up or down, no beginning or horizon, only stillness, heavy and eternal, wrapped in darkness so complete that even time had not yet learned to move. None was not evil, nor was it kind. It simply was, a vast, silent potential where nothing had shape, name, or purpose. No land rose from its depths, no wind disturbed its surface. The waters waited, patient and infinite, holding within them the possibility of everything that would ever exist. In this boundless void, there were no gods to rule, no humans to pray, no stars to mark the passing of nights. Sound itself had not yet been born. Creation had not failed, it had not yet begun. Yet within none, unseen and unfelt, the seeds of existence rested. Egyptian priests would later say that all things come from none, and all things will one day return to it. Even the gods feared it, for it reminded them of a time before order, before light, before power had meaning. The silence of none was absolute, but it was not empty. Deep within those dark waters, something began to stir, a presence without form, a will without a body. The chaos trembled, ever so slightly, as if sensing that it would not remain alone forever. The stillness quivered, the darkness held its breath. From this formless infinity, a force prepared to rise, one that would bring light, order, and time itself into being. And when that moment came, none would no longer be the only truth, for from chaos, creation was about to awaken. From the silent depths of none, where no shape yet existed, and no name had ever been spoken, a miracle occurred. One without precedent, one without cause. A god came into being alone. Ra was not born as other beings are. There was no mother to cradle him, no father to give him form. He emerged by his own will, a consciousness igniting itself within the darkness. Egyptian myth would later call him Khepri, he who comes into being, the God who created himself when nothing else existed to create him. In that moment, Ra became both creation and creator. He was thought made flesh, light forged from pure intention. As awareness awakened within him, so too did power. He knew himself simply because he existed, and by knowing himself, he gained dominion over all that would follow. Ra rose from the waters, forming the first sacred mound, the Benben, a point of stability in an infinite void. Upon it he stood alone, gazing into a universe that had never known sight. His body shone like molten gold, not reflecting light, but being light itself. Where his presence settled, chaos began to retreat. With his awakening came the first act of creation, identity. Ra spoke, or perhaps thought, his own name, and in doing so, defined existence. In Egyptian belief, to know a name was to hold power. Ra's knowledge of himself made him supreme, unchallenged, and absolute. Yet despite his power, Ra was utterly alone. There were no voices to answer him, no stars to witness his rising. Only the dark waters stretched endlessly around him. And so from solitude came purpose. From self-awareness came the desire to create. The universe had taken its first breath. Light now existed where none had before. Order had found its anchor, and at the center of all things stood Ra, the self-born God, proof that even from nothingness, creation could arise by sheer will alone. The moment Ra rose fully from the waters of none, the universe changed forever. What had once been endless darkness now trembled beneath a growing brilliance. Slowly, deliberately, Ra lifted himself above the primeval abyss, and with that motion, light was born. This was the first sunrise, but there was no horizon yet, no sky to catch the glow. Ra's radiance spilled freely in all directions, piercing the void like fire through mist. Darkness recoiled, retreating into corners that had never before known fear. Shadows were created in that instant, defined only because light now existed to oppose them. Where Ra's glow touched the waters, they shimmered and calmed. Chaos, once absolute, began to yield. The light did not merely illuminate, it ordered. It separated what had been indistinguishable, revealing depth, distance, and form. Time itself began to move, measured not by clocks or stars, but by the steady presence of Ra's rising. For the first time, existence could be seen. Ra shone with the intensity of creation itself. His body was the sun, blazing and eternal, yet controlled by divine will. He looked upon the emptiness before him, and though nothing yet lived, the universe was no longer silent. Light had given it a voice. In later ages, Egyptians would believe that every sunrise reenacted this sacred moment. Each dawn was Ra's victory over darkness, a reminder that chaos could never fully return while the sun still rose. Morning was not simply a time of day, it was a promise written into the fabric of reality. As Ra ascended higher, the void transformed beneath him. The first day began, though no one yet existed to witness it. Still, the light rose faithfully, announcing the dawn of creation itself. From this moment onward, darkness would never reign alone again, for the sun had risen once, and having risen, it would rise forever. As Ra's light spread across the newborn universe, creation remained fragile, unfinished, waiting for command. Light alone was not enough. Order required authority, and authority required a name. In ancient Egyptian belief, a name was not merely a sound, it was essence. To know a being's true name was to know its nature, its power, its place in the cosmos. And so, standing alone upon the first mound of creation, Ra performed an act greater than light itself. He named himself. In that moment, Ra spoke, or willed, his secret name into existence. The sound echoed across the primeval waters, and the universe listened. Chaos stilled. The formless took shape. By naming himself, Ra defined what it meant to be. He was no longer just light rising from darkness. He became authority incarnate. With his name, Ra gained mastery over creation. The waters of noon no longer surrounded him as equals, they bowed. The void no longer resisted, it obeyed. Every force that would ever exist became subject to the one who named himself first. The Egyptians believed that Ra's true name was hidden, known only to himself. It was the source of his supremacy, the reason even other gods feared and revered him. As long as his name remained secret, his power was absolute and unchallenged. Through naming, Ra began to structure reality. Concepts like order, direction, and purpose took root. This was the birth of Ma'at, cosmic balance, set in motion by a single divine act of self-definition. In later ages, priests would whisper names in rituals, believing words carried echoes of Ra's original power. Pharaohs would claim divine names to rule. Magic itself would be rooted in the belief that spoken truth shapes reality. All of it traced back to this moment. Before the world had form, before gods filled the heavens, Ra named himself, and by doing so, taught the universe how to exist. With light established and order awakening, Ra stood alone at the center of existence. The universe glowed, but it was empty. There were no voices to answer him, no life to reflect his brilliance. And so, from solitude, creation took a more intimate form. Ra breathed. From his breath flowed Shu, the god of air, invisible yet powerful, filling the space between sky and earth that had not yet been born. With Shu came movement, the first currents, the first sense of separation and direction. The universe no longer stood still. It inhaled and exhaled with divine rhythm. Then Ra wept. His tears fell into the primeval waters, each drop carrying the warmth of the sun god's essence. Where they touched the earth, they transformed into living beings. From Ra's sorrow and compassion, humanity emerged, fragile, brief, yet blessed with the light of their Creator. In Egyptian thought, humans were not accidents of creation, but children born of divine emotion. These acts were not acts of violence or conquest, they were acts of vulnerability. Ra did not forge life with weapons or thunder, but with breath and tears, symbols of life and feeling. Creation, in its earliest form, was deeply personal. As Shu took his place, Ra exhaled again, and Tefnut, goddess of moisture and balance, came into being. Together, air and moisture shaped the conditions for life, holding chaos at bay. The universe now had elements that could sustain growth, harmony, and continuation. In this moment, creation shifted from concept to living reality. The cosmos was no longer light empty, it was populated, breathing, and alive. The Egyptians believed that every human breath echoed Shu, and every tear carried memory of Ra's first sorrow. Life itself was a reminder that creation was born not only from power, but from feeling. Thus, through breath and tears, Ra filled the universe with life and ensured that none who lived beneath the sun were ever truly separate from their creator. As Ra's breath moved through the newborn cosmos and his tears gave rise to life, creation began to take its first stable form. From the essence of the sun god emerged two divine forces, bound together yet distinct, Shu and Tefnut. They were not merely gods, but principles made flesh, the foundations upon which the world would stand. Shu was the air, clear, unseen, and endlessly present. He carried Ra's breath within him, spreading light and movement through the void. Where Shu flowed, space itself was born. He became the force that allowed things to exist apart rather than collapse into chaos. Without Shu, all creation would suffocate, crushed back into the darkness of none. Tefnut followed, formed from Ra's divine moisture. She was humidity, dew, and the promise of balance. Where Shu created space, Tefnut softened it, bringing harmony between dryness and flood, heat and cool. She was the quiet counterweight to Shu's motion, ensuring that creation did not tear itself apart. Together, Shu and Tefnut were inseparable. Air without moisture was lifeless. Moisture without air was stagnant. Their union shaped the conditions necessary for life to endure. Under Ra's watchful gaze, they moved outward into the vastness, expanding the boundaries of existence and holding chaos at bay. Yet their creation also marked Ra's first act of letting go. For the first time, forces other than himself carried responsibility for maintaining the universe. The sun god was no longer alone in upholding order. In later myths, Shu and Tefnut would wander into the darkness and nearly be lost, reminding the gods how fragile creation still was. But in this first moment, they stood radiant and new, proof that the universe could sustain itself through balance. With Shu and Tefnut, the cosmos gained breath and moisture, motion and harmony. Creation was no longer fragile light. It had structure, rhythm, and the promise of permanence. For a time, Shu and Tefnut moved freely through the expanding cosmos, carrying out Ra's will. Air and moisture spread, shaping the early foundations of creation. But the universe was still young and unstable, and beyond the reach of Ra's direct light, chaos lingered. One day, Shu and Tefnut wandered too far. They drifted into the outer darkness, toward the edges of none, where light weakened and order thinned. There, the boundaries of creation blurred, distance lost meaning, direction dissolved. The two divine forces became separated from Ra and from each other, swallowed by the silent vastness from which everything had first emerged. Ra felt their absence immediately. For the first time since his awakening, fear touched the sun god. Shu and Tefnut were not merely creations, they were extensions of his own essence. Without air and moisture, the fragile balance of the cosmos could collapse back into chaos. Creation itself was at risk. Standing alone once more, Ra looked out across the darkened expanse and realized that light alone could not reach everywhere. Something more was needed, a force that could travel where his radiance could not. From his own being, Ra summoned his eye. The eye of Ra was not simply sight, it was will, power, and divine awareness given form. Sent into the darkness, the eye moved swiftly through the void, burning through chaos, searching every corner of existence. Where it passed, shadows recoiled, and none trembled. Ra waited in silence, his light steady but tense,
holding the universe together by sheer force of will. For the first time, the Creator understood loss and the danger of a world beyond his immediate control. Far away in the depths of darkness, the eye of Ra finally found them. Shu and Tefnut, lost but unharmed, were guided back toward the light. Creation exhaled. This search marked a turning point. The universe was no longer a single point of light. It was vast, dangerous, and required guardians. From this moment on, Ra would rule not only as creator, but as protector of order against the endless pull of chaos. From the furthest reaches of the darkness, the eye of Ra turned back toward the light. Its journey through none had been swift and merciless, burning through chaos, bending shadow to divine will. Now it returned, carrying Shu and Tefnut safely within its power. As the eye approached, the universe itself seemed to tighten. The waters of none rippled, darkness withdrew. Ra stood upon the first mound, his radiance unwavering, yet something new stirred within him. Relief, pride, and awe at the force he had unleashed. When the eye reached him, its brilliance flared brighter than the sun itself. Shu and Tefnut emerged, restored and radiant, their essence strengthened by their passage through chaos. Creation was whole again. Overcome by emotion, Ra wept once more. His tears fell upon the earth, and where they touched, more humans were born. In that moment, joy and sorrow became intertwined, woven into the fabric of existence. Life multiplied, not from command alone, but from divine feeling. Yet the eye did not return quietly. Having tasted the darkness, it burned with fury and independence. It had seen chaos firsthand and had learned its own strength. The eye no longer wished to be merely a servant. It had become a force of its own. Its power blazed, unpredictable and fierce, filling even Ra with caution. To calm it, Ra transformed the eye, giving it new forms and roles: Hathor, Sekhmet, Bastet, each reflecting an aspect of its burning nature. Destruction, protection, mercy, and wrath all flowed from the same divine source. This moment revealed a truth the gods would never forget. Creation could not be undone without consequence. Every power unleashed gained a will of its own. Even Ra, the self-born sun, could not fully reclaim what he had released into the world. As the eye settled into its place among the gods, balance returned, but it was no longer fragile innocence that ruled creation. It was watchfulness. From that day forward, the eye of Ra would stand as both guardian and warning, proof that light could defend order, but also burn those who threatened it. With Shu and Tefnut restored, and order beginning to settle, Ra looked upon the universe and saw it incomplete. There was light, motion, and moisture, yet the cosmos lacked form. No sky arched above, no earth supported life. The world needed structure, a space where life could flourish and creation could fully take shape. From his divine will, Ra brought forth Geb and Nut, earth and sky, twin children born of his essence. Geb rose as the solid ground, dark and fertile, his body stretching wide across the primeval waters. From him flowed mountains, valleys, and plains, each contour a testament to Ra's power. Nut followed, a vault of blue and gold, curving above Geb in a protective embrace, dotted with stars that gleamed like sparks of his first light. Together they defined the boundaries of the universe, separating sky from earth, order from chaos. Yet their closeness threatened the balance Ra desired. Geb and Nut clung together, and the world was squeezed between them. Ra called upon Shu, the god of air, to intervene. Gently but firmly, Shu lifted Nut away from Geb, creating space for life to exist. The separation was delicate yet absolute. The first horizon was born, a line dividing the heavens from the lands below, where rivers would flow, forests would rise, and humans would one day walk. Ra gazed upon this new cosmos, his heart swelling with satisfaction. The light now had a canvas. Creation had a stage. Sky and earth were not mere landscapes, they were living extensions of Ra's order, breathing harmony into the world. From this divine act, Egyptians believed that the sky and earth were forever linked, yet eternally apart. A reminder of balance, a proof that even gods must sometimes intervene to maintain order in the universe. The stage for life was ready, and the story of creation had only just begun. Though Geb and Nut, the gods of earth and sky, had come into being, their closeness threatened the harmony Ra sought for the universe. They clung together, embracing in an eternal, undivided bond. Between their union, there was no space for the winds to flow, no room for the sun to travel, and no place for life to thrive. The cosmos, though bright and full of potential, was trapped in an unshaped tension. Ra recognized that creation required boundaries. Without separation, order could not exist, and chaos might reclaim the void. Summoning Shu, the god of air and Ra's first child through breath, he gave a command that would define the very structure of the world. With gentle but unyielding force, Shu rose between Geb and Nut, lifting the sky above the earth and creating the sacred space of the horizon. Nut stretched her vast body across the heavens, a protective vault dotted with stars, her hands reaching toward the edges of existence. Geb remained below, his fertile body forming the lands, valleys, and mountains that would nurture life. The first horizon was drawn, a sacred line dividing day from night, sky from land, and chaos from order. This act of separation was more than physical, it was symbolic. Ra taught that balance is essential, that life requires both freedom and limits. The air that Shu carried now flowed freely, winds that would shape weather and guide life. The sky above became a stage for the sun's daily journey, the moon and the stars, while the earth below became a cradle for plants, animals, and humans. In Egyptian belief, this moment marked the triumph of order over chaos, a divine act that made the universe habitable. The separation of sky and earth was not merely an arrangement of space, it was Ra's declaration that life, balance, and creation could endure. It was a gift of structure, a blueprint for the world that would last for eternity. With the sky lifted above the earth and Shu holding the heavens aloft, Ra prepared to complete the first day of creation. The world, newly shaped, awaited light to bring life into focus. Until now, the lands of Geb lay in dim reflection of the primeval waters, and Nut's vast sky shimmered only with hints of divine radiance. The universe needed movement, warmth, and illumination. Then Ra rose fully from the horizon of the newly separated earth. His golden body blazed, casting brilliant light across mountains, valleys, and rivers. The first sunrise was not gradual, it was a declaration. Shadows formed for the first time, stretching across the fertile lands and revealing the contours of creation. Darkness, which had ruled since the beginning of time, was pushed back, powerless against the intensity of Ra's emergence.
As the light touched the earth, life stirred. Waters reflected the sun's glory, wind swept across open plains, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with the sun god's presence. Ra's light became the heartbeat of the world, establishing the rhythm of day and night, of time itself. Egyptians would later see in this act the origin of Ma'at, the balance and order that sustains the universe. The first sunrise was also a cosmic promise. It showed that the separation of sky and earth was complete, and that Ra, the self-born god, had assumed his place as ruler of all creation. Every dawn that would follow was a reenactment of this sacred event, a daily affirmation that light would always return, that life would endure, and that chaos could never fully consume the order Ra had established. On that first day, the earth awoke beneath the warmth of the sun, and the heavens blazed with light. The world had begun, and life had its first witness. With the first sunrise over the newly formed earth, Ra had demonstrated the power of light, order, and creation itself. Yet the cosmos, though alive, was still filled with other emerging divine beings, Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Nut, and later other gods, each possessing their own strength and influence. To maintain harmony and ensure that creation endured, one figure needed to rise above all others. That figure was Ra. Ra did not seize this position through force or conquest. His supremacy was recognized because he was the origin of everything, the first light, the self-born god, the source from which all other deities emerged. His breath had created Shu. His tears had birthed humanity. His will had shaped the very sky and earth. By these acts, Ra embodied the principles of authority, wisdom, and balance, qualities essential to rule. The gods themselves gathered and acknowledged his supremacy. They bowed not only to his might, but to his knowledge, his vision, and his role as the unifying center of creation. Ra became the king of the gods, supreme ruler of the heavens, the earth, and all life that moved between them. In this role, he was responsible for maintaining Ma'at, cosmic order, and for guiding the universe through the cycles of day and night. To exercise this authority, Ra traveled across the sky in his solar boat, overseeing both gods and mortals alike. From dawn to dusk, his light reinforced his dominion, reminding all beings that life, balance, and justice flowed from him. Pharaohs and priests would later model their rule on Ra's example, claiming descent from the sun god to uphold authority on earth. Ra's kingship was not merely a title, it was the foundation of order itself. By ascending as king of the gods, Ra ensured that the universe, once chaotic and formless, would endure under his vigilant light for all eternity. To traverse the heavens each day and bring light to the world, Ra needed more than mere strength. He needed a vessel worthy of his divine power. From the very essence of creation, he commanded the forging of the solar boat, a craft unlike any other, designed to carry the sun god across the sky and into the mysterious depths of the underworld each night. The boat was crafted from sacred materials, imbued with the brilliance of Ra himself. Its hull shone like polished gold, reflecting and amplifying the sun's light, while its sails were woven from beams of pure radiance. Every plank, every rope, every oar was enchanted with divine purpose, resistant to chaos and shadow. This was no ordinary vessel. It was a moving shrine, a floating palace that bore the authority of the supreme god. As Ra stepped aboard, the boat seemed to come alive. The waters beneath it, once chaotic and turbulent, parted and stilled, yielding a path for the god's journey. The solar boat became a bridge between heaven and earth, a channel through which life, order, and energy flowed to all corners of creation. Its presence reassured the gods and mortals alike that the light of Ra would never falter. In Egyptian mythology, the solar boat would later symbolize the sun's daily cycle, the rise at dawn, the descent at dusk, and the perilous journey through the underworld each night. Ra's boat was not merely a means of travel, it was a cosmic safeguard, carrying the sun through darkness, defeating the forces of chaos, and ensuring the continuation of life and order. Thus, the solar boat was forged, not as a tool, but as a divine extension of Ra himself. With it, the sun god could sail eternally, illuminating the world by day and conquering the shadows by night, a perpetual journey that sustained creation itself. With the solar boat prepared, Ra embarked on his daily voyage across the heavens, inaugurating a rhythm that would define time itself. Each morning he rose from the eastern horizon, his golden form blazing, illuminating the world below. Mountains, rivers, and forests basked in his radiance, and every living being stirred in response. This journey was not merely a passage of light, it was the heartbeat of creation, a cycle that brought order, life, and hope to the universe. As Ra sailed across the sky, the solar boat carried more than the sun god. It carried authority. From this elevated vantage, Ra surveyed all of creation, the gods who upheld cosmic balance, the humans who walked the earth, and the forces of chaos that ever threatened to return. His light reinforced Ma'at, the divine order, reminding all beings that the universe was not random, but guided by purpose. The journey was also perilous. Though the sun appeared serene, dangers lurked in the shadows. The serpent Apophis, embodiment of chaos, awaited Ra's descent, ready to swallow the sun and plunge the world back into darkness. Every day, Ra's passage became a battle, a struggle to maintain the fragile balance between order and chaos. The gods who traveled with him, Set, Thoth, and others, stood as protectors, ensuring the sun's path remained uninterrupted. For humans, the daily journey of Ra became sacred. Sunrise marked renewal, opportunity, and protection. Rituals and prayers honored the sun god, expressing gratitude for light, warmth, and life itself. Farmers, priests, and rulers alike looked to the east, witnessing the eternal cycle of creation in motion. Thus began the daily journey of Ra, a voyage that was at once cosmic and intimate, perilous and triumphant. Through his passage across the sky, light triumphed over darkness, life persisted, and the rhythm of the universe was forever established. With the foundations of the world established, the separation of sky and earth, the rising of the sun, and the guidance of the gods, the stage was ready for life to flourish. Ra, having created the first humans from his own tears, watched as these fragile beings opened their eyes to the new world. They were small, vulnerable, and unaware of the cosmic forces that shaped their existence, yet they carried the spark of divine light within them. Under the warmth of Ra's daily journey, humans began to grow and multiply. Families formed, villages emerged, and life spread across the fertile lands of Geb. The rivers, nourished by Tefnut's moisture, sustained crops, while the air carried by Shu allowed winds to move freely, shaping the environment for survival. From this balance of elements, humanity learned to thrive. Each sunrise became a symbol of protection and opportunity, a reminder that Ra's light guided their lives and that the gods watched over them. The Egyptians believed that humans were not mere byproducts of creation, they were deliberate extensions of the sun god's power. Their existence reflected his compassion, his intention, and his desire for life to experience growth and continuity. As humans multiplied, they developed customs, language, and rituals that honored the gods, ensuring that the cycle of divine order persisted. Yet multiplication brought responsibility. Humans, gifted with life, had to respect the balance of ma'at, justice, truth, and harmony, to avoid returning the world to chaos. Ra's vigilance never waned. From his solar boat, he observed their actions, rewarding obedience and punishing transgression when necessary. In this way, humanity flourished under the sun god's watchful eye. Life spread across the earth like sunlight itself, vibrant and unstoppable, a living testament to Ra's creative power and the enduring bond between gods and mortals.
Even the greatest of gods are touched by time, and Ra, the self-born sun, was no exception. For countless eons he had risen from the horizon each morning, his brilliance illuminating the earth, guiding the gods, and sustaining life. Yet with every passing day the weight of creation pressed upon him. The light that once blazed effortlessly began to carry the subtle warmth of fatigue, and the steady cycle of sunrise and sunset demanded more than mere strength. It demanded endurance. Ra's golden body, which had once seemed eternal and untouchable, now bore the faint marks of his relentless journey across the sky. The solar boat, ever faithful, creaked beneath the weight of his presence as he traversed the heavens. The guardians who accompanied him, the gods of protection, wisdom, and strength, watched carefully, understanding that even the king of gods could falter if his power waned. This aging did not mean weakness, but transformation. Ra's wisdom deepened, and his understanding of the world and its fragile balance grew sharper. He had seen humans multiply and civilizations rise, witnessed gods bicker and chaos stir, and now he carried centuries of observation within his being. With age came a new kind of authority, one rooted not only in power, but in the patience and foresight necessary to preserve creation. Yet his mortality, even as a god, reminded all of the delicate harmony between light and shadow. Ra's brilliance was no longer limitless, and the threat of darkness, Apophis, and other forces of chaos loomed larger against the setting sun. The gods and humans alike recognized that their world depended on his endurance. In the quiet moments before dawn, Ra's light softened, glowing with the weight of experience. Though he aged, the sun still rose, a daily testament to his enduring will, reminding all creation that even as time passed, order and life continued under his vigilant gaze. Even under the golden gaze of Ra, humans proved not always loyal or obedient. As the sun god's light stretched across the lands of Geb, illuminating fields, rivers, and temples, whispers began to rise among mortals. Though life had been granted to them by Ra's tears, and warmth and sustenance came daily from his journey across the sky, some began to doubt his vigilance. They wondered if a god so far above could truly see all, or if, perhaps, he had grown old and weary like the legends murmured by elders. In secret, groups of humans began plotting. They questioned the divine order, the laws of Ma'at, and even the authority of Ra himself. Some envied the gods, dreaming of power and freedom from divine oversight. Others were driven by fear, unsure of the harsh punishments that might come from displeasing a sun god. Together, these factions murmured in shadows, crafting plans to resist, to hide from, or even to overthrow the deity who had created the world. Ra, though mighty, was not blind. From his solar boat, he observed subtle movements of thought and intent. The gods whispered warnings to him. The murmurs of rebellion were growing, and the seeds of chaos threatened to sprout among mortals. For the first time, Ra felt the weight of betrayal, not from another god, but from the creatures he had made to walk upon the earth. The plotting of humanity marked a turning point in creation. It demonstrated that life, while born from divine will, carried its own intentions, desires, and defiance. Even the sun god, supreme and eternal, had to reckon with the unpredictable heart of humankind. This moment would lead to a confrontation that tested the strength of Ra, the loyalty of his eye, and the delicate balance between order and chaos, setting the stage for consequences that would echo through all of creation. From his solar boat, Ra circled the heavens as he had done since the first sunrise. His light touched every mountain, every river, every temple. Nothing escaped the gaze of the sun god, not the bustling life of humans, nor the whispers of the lesser gods. Yet on this day, as he observed the world below, something stirred within him that he had never felt before, a deep, simmering anger. Ra had created humanity with his tears, given them warmth, light, and the fertile lands of Geb to call home. He had guided their growth, shaped their world, and established Ma'at, the divine order that allowed life to flourish. And yet, even in his absence, during the silent hours of the night, when darkness fell, humans plotted against him. They doubted his watchfulness, questioned his authority, and conspired in secret, testing the limits of his patience and the strength of his vigilance. The betrayal was not hidden. Ra's vision penetrated hearts and minds as surely as it lit the earth. Every whisper of defiance, every thought of rebellion reached him like a sharp blade. The sun god's fury burned hotter than the midday sun, a light so intense that even the shadows recoiled. The betrayal was personal, for Ra's connection to humanity was not distant. It was born of his own essence. They were extensions of his tears, reflections of his divine power, yet they sought to undermine him. In response, Ra summoned the gods to his council, calling forth the powers who could aid him in restoring order. From this moment, the fate of humankind and the balance of the universe would hang in delicate tension. The betrayal of humans was not merely defiance, it was a challenge to the very authority of the sun god, one that would unleash wrath, justice, and lessons that no mortal would soon forget. Ra's light burned brighter that day, illuminating not only the world, but the harsh truth of rebellion against the divine. The whispers of human rebellion reached Ra with unmistakable clarity, and the sun god knew that the balance of creation was at risk. To address the growing threat, he summoned the gods to a divine council atop the first mound, where earth and sky met, and the horizon stretched endlessly in every direction. Here, the rulers of air, moisture, earth, sky, and the underworld would gather to deliberate, to counsel, and to prepare for the consequences of mankind's defiance. Shu, the god of air, arrived first, his presence steady and cool, carrying with him the breath of life and the calm necessary to guide judgment. Tefnut, goddess of moisture, shimmered beside him, her waters reflecting the brilliance of Ra's light, offering clarity and insight. Geb and Nut watched from their respective realms, earth and sky, aware that even their children, humans, had begun to stray from the order Ra had imposed. Set, Thoth, and other gods followed, each bringing wisdom, power, or force to the deliberations. The council was solemn. Ra spoke, his voice resonating like sunlight across the world. Humanity has turned against the order I have created. They plot, they conspire, they challenge my will. What must be done to restore Ma'at? The gods debated, balancing justice with mercy. Some urged punishment to remind humans of their place beneath the divine. Others cautioned restraint, warning that excessive wrath could destroy the fragile beginnings of civilization. Yet all agreed on one point: humanity's rebellion could not go unchecked. In the end, Ra's decision was clear. He would not act alone. He would send forth a manifestation of his power, a force to confront the humans who dared defy him. Thus, the Eye of Ra would be unleashed, embodying fury, judgment, and divine authority. From that council, the gods learned that even the smallest acts of rebellion could ripple through creation, and that the balance of the universe depended upon vigilance, unity, and the unyielding will of the sun god.
From the solemn council of the gods, Ra knew that mere warnings would not suffice. Humanity's rebellion had grown too brazen, their whispers of defiance too dangerous to ignore. To restore order, he summoned his most fearsome and loyal emissary, the Eye of Ra, taking the form of Hathor, the lioness goddess of wrath and protection. She was no gentle nurturer in this moment. She embodied the blazing fury of the sun, a living force of divine retribution. Hathor emerged from Ra's essence, her golden eyes burning with unyielding fire. Her mane flowed like molten sunlight, her claws sharp enough to tear through mountains and civilizations alike. The world trembled beneath her steps, and the humans who had plotted against the sun god felt an instinctive terror, as if the light itself had grown teeth. Every being that saw her recognized the presence of justice incarnate. As Hathor advanced, rivers shivered, winds shifted, and the sky darkened where her fury passed. She moved with purpose, unstoppable and absolute, seeking the conspirators who had dared challenge Ra's authority. Her roar echoed across the horizon, a sound that could shatter mountains and make the deserts quake. In this moment, creation itself seemed to hold its breath, awaiting the consequences of human defiance. Yet even in her wrath, Hathor was more than destruction. She was Ra's judgment, a reflection of divine law. Each strike was deliberate, meant to restore balance, to remind humanity of its place beneath the gods. Mortals who recognized her power and submitted would be spared. Those who resisted would face the full force of her anger. Thus, Hathor was unleashed, a blazing testament to Ra's authority, the embodiment of divine justice, and a warning that rebellion against the sun god could never go unpunished. Through her, chaos was confronted, and the world learned that the light of Ra carried both creation and wrath. Hathor, the Eye of Ra, descended upon the earth with a fury that had never been seen before. Her golden eyes blazed like twin suns, her roar rolling across deserts and mountains, shaking the hearts of mortals who had dared conspire against their creator. No shadow could hide them, no cave could shelter them. The very air seemed to burn under her presence. Humanity, once proud and defiant, now faced the unrelenting wrath of a god made flesh.
Those who plotted against Ra's authority were struck down first, their homes consumed by fire, their fields scorched under the intensity of her gaze. Rivers bubbled and steam rose as the sun's fury touched every corner of the land, turning fertile soil into ash and leaving cities trembling in silence. Yet Hathor's slaughter was not mindless. Each act of destruction carried a message. Ra's authority was absolute, and rebellion would never be tolerated. Mortals who had once whispered against the sun god now fell to their knees, their cries carried on the winds, pleading for mercy. Some fled, but even flight offered little protection. Hathor moved faster than they could run, a streak of divine fire against the fragile lives of humans. In the midst of this devastation, the balance of creation teetered. Ra watched from his solar boat, his light illuminating the destruction below, and felt the weight of sorrow mingled with anger. Life, precious and fragile, had been granted by his own tears, yet humanity had abused the gift. This slaughter became a defining moment in creation. It was a lesson carved into the very fabric of the earth. Chaos and disobedience would not go unpunished, and the light of Ra carried both the warmth of life and the fury of justice. Through fear, obedience, and awe, humanity learned that the sun god's authority was eternal, unyielding, and absolute.
As the fires died down and the echoes of Hathor's roar faded into the winds, Ra gazed upon the earth he had created. The devastation was complete. Villages lay in ruin, fertile fields charred to black, and countless humans, children, farmers, and elders alike had perished under the unrelenting wrath of his eye. Though justice had been served, the sun god felt an unfamiliar weight pressing upon him: regret. Ra's brilliance, once unshakable, dimmed slightly as he reflected on the consequences of his actions. He had unleashed Hathor to enforce order, to punish rebellion, and to remind mortals of their place beneath the gods. And yet, in achieving obedience, he had also taken life in ways that shook the harmony he so carefully cultivated. The humans he had birthed from his own tears, the delicate extensions of his divine essence, had been nearly destroyed. For the first time, Ra understood the delicate balance between justice and mercy. The power to create was intertwined with the responsibility to protect, and the punishment of the guilty could not come at the cost of annihilating all. As the sun began its journey toward the zenith, Ra's light softened, touching the land with warmth rather than blaze. He mourned the lives lost, the potential erased, and the sorrow etched into the earth itself. From this moment, Ra's rule became tempered with wisdom. He realized that authority alone was not enough to maintain Ma'at. Compassion must guide action, even in moments of necessary wrath. The regret of the sun god was not weakness, it was understanding, a recognition that creation required patience, balance, and care. Thus, Ra's regret became part of the eternal rhythm of the universe, a reminder that even the mightiest god must weigh the cost of power against the value of life. Through sorrow, he learned to govern not just with fire, but with the light of understanding.
Though Hathor had unleashed her fury, and Ra had punished humanity for their rebellion, the sun god's heart was not entirely hardened. As he gazed upon the desolate lands, he saw remnants of life, humans who had survived, trembling in fear, yet still capable of growth. Ra understood that if Hathor continued unchecked, all of humanity might perish, and creation itself would suffer. He needed a way to stop the eye's wrath without undermining its power. From his divine wisdom, Ra devised a clever plan. he summoned the humans together and instructed them to prepare vast quantities of red-colored beer, dyed with ochre to resemble the color of blood. Hathor, fierce and relentless, would see this offering and be deceived into believing that the humans had already been destroyed, that their lifeblood had been spilled across the land. When Hathor arrived, her golden eyes blazing and claws poised for destruction, she saw the rivers of red and paused. Suspicion and curiosity overtook her fury. She tasted the red liquid, thinking it the remnants of human blood, and her anger began to subside. Slowly she drank deeply, savoring the blood that symbolized the punishment she had been sent to deliver. With each sip, her wrath diminished, and her burning gaze softened. Through this simple yet brilliant trick, Ra preserved humanity while maintaining the authority of his eye. Hathor, satisfied that justice had been served, withdrew from the lands, her roaring steps fading into the distance. The humans were spared, and the balance of Ma'at was restored. This story became a lesson for all generations. Even divine wrath could be tempered with cleverness and wisdom. Life could endure when intellect and strategy worked in harmony with the forces of creation. Ra's cunning ensured that humanity survived, and the red beer became a symbol of divine mercy disguised as obedience. After Hathor drank the red beer and her wrath subsided, a profound silence settled across the lands of Geb. The fires had died, the roar had faded, and for the first time in countless days, the humans dared to breathe freely. They had witnessed the full force of divine fury, yet, through Ra's wisdom and cleverness, life had been spared. Ra descended in his solar boot, his light illuminating the trembling survivors. He looked upon them, not with anger this time, but with a measured compassion. Humanity had learned the consequences of rebellion, yet they remained the children of his tears, fragile and precious. By sparing them, Ra reinforced the balance between justice and mercy, showing that even the most powerful god could temper judgment with wisdom. The humans knelt before Ra, their hearts filled with awe, gratitude, and fear. They understood for the first time the full weight of divine authority. Every sunrise would now remind them of his vigilance, every shadow a testament to the delicate boundary between life and chaos. Ra's decision to spare them was not merely an act of forgiveness, it was a lesson that obedience, reverence, and understanding of Ma'at, the cosmic order, were essential for survival. From that day forward, humans rebuilt their villages, cultivated the fertile lands, and honored the sun god through offerings, prayers, and ritual. They told the story of Hathor's wrath and the red beer, passing it through generations as both warning and inspiration. In sparing humanity, Ra achieved more than mercy. He reinforced the enduring principle that creation is precious, that life is worth protecting, and that even divine justice must be balanced with wisdom. Through this act, the bond between gods and mortals was strengthened, and the world, though scarred, was given a chance to flourish under the eternal light of the sun god. After the chaos of Hathor's wrath and the sparing of humanity, Ra stood upon the first mound, gazing across the lands of Geb. The rivers flowed once more, villages began to rise from the ashes, and humans moved cautiously but alive under his light. Yet, even with order restored, Ra understood that his constant presence among mortals could no longer guide them without stifling their growth. The time had come for the sun god to withdraw from the earth, to rule from above, and allow creation to sustain itself while maintaining the balance of Ma'at. Ra rose into the sky, ascending in his solar boat, his golden form blazing as it carried him higher and higher. The humans below watched in awe, shielding their eyes from the brilliance of their creator. Though he would no longer walk among them, his influence remained omnipresent, the sun that rose each morning, the warmth that nourished crops, and the light that revealed both beauty and truth. Ra's withdrawal marked a new era, the age of observation, guidance, and divine oversight from the heavens rather than direct intervention. From his elevated vantage, Ra could survey all creation, watching over Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Nut, and the surviving humans alike. Chaos had been subdued, but never fully defeated. Rebellion and imbalance could always return. By ascending, Ra ensured that the forces of order remained vigilant, while granting mortals the freedom to live, learn, and prove themselves worthy of life. This withdrawal also symbolized the establishment of cosmic law. The gods would oversee, but mortals must act responsibly. Humanity, forever aware of the sun god's gaze, learned to honor Ra through ritual, offering, and daily acknowledgement of his power. Ra's retreat to the heavens was not abandonment, it was the beginning of an eternal cycle of guidance, light, and the balance of creation under his watchful eye. With humanity spared and the lands of Geb slowly recovering, Ra prepared for his final act of withdrawal, ascension to the sky. The time had come for the self-born god to take his eternal place above the earth, ruling not by proximity, but by the brilliance of his light. From the first mound, Ra gazed upon the world he had formed, a universe balanced between order and chaos, life and shadow, light and darkness. Ra stepped into his solar boat, now fully prepared to traverse the heavens each day. The vessel shimmered with divine brilliance, a reflection of his own golden body, and carried the weight of creation itself. As he rose, the earth below seemed to exhale in relief and awe. Humans, still cautious from Hathor's wrath, watched as the sun god lifted higher, a blazing presence ascending beyond the mountains and valleys he had nurtured. Shu, the god of air, held the space between sky and earth steady, ensuring that Nut, the sky goddess, arched gracefully above Geb. Tefnut's moisture shimmered across rivers and lakes, reflecting Ra's ascent in dazzling light. Even the other gods bowed in reverence, acknowledging the supreme authority of Ra as he claimed his rightful place among the celestial realms. From this elevated position, Ra became the eternal ruler of the heavens. Each day he would sail across the sky in his solar boat, bringing light, warmth, and order to all life below. Each night he would journey through the underworld, defeating chaos and reaffirming the balance of Ma'at. Ra's ascension was not merely a departure, it was the establishment of the cosmic cycle. Humanity and gods alike would live under his watchful eye, learning the rhythms of life, the power of the sun, and the enduring truth that creation thrives when guided by light, wisdom, and eternal vigilance. For countless generations, the earth flourished under the guidance of Ra. Humans thrived in fertile lands, cities rose along the banks of the great Nile, and the balance of Ma'at, order, truth, and harmony was maintained. The Golden Age had arrived, a time when the light of Ra illuminated every corner of existence, when life prospered in rhythm with the sun god's daily journey, and when gods and mortals alike honored the divine order. Yet, as with all things in creation, even the brightest era could not last forever. The Golden Age was fragile, dependent on the vigilance of both mortals and gods. As humans multiplied and spread across the lands, some grew complacent, forgetting the lessons of obedience and humility. Whispers of discontent returned, subtle at first, like shadows creeping across the fertile earth. Farmers and rulers alike began to prioritize ambition over reverence, and greed quietly eroded the respect for Mart that had sustained harmony for centuries. The gods, ever watchful, observed these shifts with concern. Even Ra, from his solar boat, sensed the change. The cycles of the sun continued, but the heart of creation stirred uneasily. The forces of chaos, long held at bay, began to gather strength in the dark corners of the world. The harmony that had defined the Golden Age was showing cracks, and the fragile equilibrium between life, order, and light was at risk of unraveling. Thus, the Golden Age of humanity came to an end, not through sudden catastrophe, but through the slow erosion of reverence, discipline, and respect for the divine. It became a reminder to all that the blessings of creation are not permanent. They demand vigilance, wisdom, and balance. Even under the eternal light of Ra, the world would continue, yet never again would humanity live in the effortless harmony of the first Golden Age.
As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ra prepared for the next phase of his eternal voyage, the nightly journey through the underworld, a passage as perilous as it was necessary. While the world below rested in darkness, unaware of the dangers that threatened creation, the solar boat carried Ra into the hidden realms where chaos and shadow waited to undo the order he had established. The underworld, or Duat, was a labyrinth of rivers, caverns, and shifting landscapes where the forces of disorder lurked. The serpent Apophis, embodiment of chaos itself, coiled in the darkness, ever eager to devour the sun god and plunge the world back into primeval night. Ra's journey through these realms was not mere travel, it was a battle to preserve life, light, and balance for another day. The gods accompanied him, each lending their power to ensure his safety. Set, the god of strength, confronted the serpent directly, wielding force and cunning to hold Apophis at bay. Thoth, the god of wisdom, charted the sun god's path, guiding the solar boat safely through shifting currents and unseen traps. Even Hathor, tempered from her previous wrath, remained vigilant, a guardian ready to defend Ra should chaos rise too boldly. In this nightly voyage, the solar boat became a floating fortress, its golden hull glowing in the darkness, illuminating the shadows that threatened creation. Ra's own light, though diminished from the brilliance of day, remained a beacon of authority, order, and life. Every moment was a delicate balance. One misstep could undo the harmony established during the day. Thus began the eternal cycle. By night, Ra battled chaos. By day, he returned to bring life and order. The nightly journey was a reminder to gods and humans alike that creation is never guaranteed. It must be defended, and the sun god's vigilance ensured that light would always triumph over darkness.
As Ra descended into the underworld, the world above fell into darkness, unaware of the hidden struggles that would determine the fate of the coming day. This realm, known to the Egyptians as the Duat, was a place of mystery and danger, a labyrinth of shadow and flux where time moved differently and the forces of chaos lurked behind every turn. It was here that creation itself was tested, and where Ra's authority faced its most profound challenges. The Duat was alive. Rivers of black water twisted through caverns of stone and mist, reflecting neither sun nor moon.
Strange creatures, half-formed and menacing, skulked in the darkness, while serpents like Apophis slithered, waiting for the moment to strike. Mountains appeared where none had existed, and deserts swallowed paths in an instant. Every step of Ra's boat required vigilance, for the underworld was both obstacle and teacher. It revealed the fragility of order and the resilience required to maintain it. Ra's companions were indispensable. Set, fierce and unwavering, confronted the serpent Apophis directly, holding its coils at bay with both strength and cunning. Thoth, wise and patient, deciphered the shifting paths and ancient signs, guiding the boat safely through realms that defied comprehension. Even the eye of Ra, tempered from previous wrath, prowled the edges of shadow, striking at anything that threatened to disrupt the balance. In this journey, the Duat was revealed not merely as a place of danger, but as a crucible of creation. Every night, Ra passed through its trials, ensuring that chaos remained contained and that the world above would see the dawn. The underworld reminded all beings, god and mortal alike, that existence depended upon vigilance, courage, and the eternal triumph of light over darkness. The Duat was not only a realm of peril, it was the hidden backbone of the cosmos, where Ra's power and the balance of Ma'at were tested and reaffirmed every night. Deep within the shadows of the Duat, the serpent Apophis waited, coiled and patient, embodying the raw chaos that had existed before Ra's light touched the world. Apophis was no ordinary creature. He was the personification of destruction, darkness, and disorder, a force that sought to undo everything the sun god had created. His black scales seemed to swallow the faint glow of Ra's boat, his eyes burning with hunger for the sun's light and the order it carried. Each night, as Ra embarked on his journey through the underworld, Apophis rose to challenge him. The serpent's body could stretch across the horizon, weaving through rivers of darkness, and its roar was like the collapse of mountains. It struck not merely with fangs, but with the weight of pure chaos, trying to swallow the solar boat and drag the sun god into eternal night. Every coil of the serpent represented a threat to life, a test of courage, and a trial of divine authority. Ra, however, was never alone. Set, the god of strength and protector of the sun god, confronted Apophis directly, striking with both force and strategy. Thoth, god of wisdom, guided Ra's path, foreseeing the serpent's movements, while the eye of Ra, vigilant and fierce, struck at Apophis's head, weakening the chaos before it could strike. Together, they created a fragile balance, containing the serpent's destructive power. Apophis was relentless, yet his opposition had a purpose. It ensured that Ra's light was not given freely, but earned each day. With every defeat of the serpent, the triumph of order over chaos was reaffirmed, a reminder to gods and mortals alike that creation required constant vigilance. The eternal struggle between Ra and Apophis defined the cycle of night and day, showing that light could never exist without the shadow that sought to destroy it. As night fell over the world, Ra's solar boat entered the shadowed waters of the Duat, its golden glow a small defiance against the darkness that stretched endlessly ahead. This night would mark the first true confrontation with Apophis, the chaos serpent who had long waited in the depths, coiled and patient, hungry to consume the sun and return the cosmos to its primordial void. The air trembled with tension, and even the currents of the underworld seemed to pause in anticipation.
Apophis struck first. With a sudden surge, the serpent's massive coils whipped around the solar boat, attempting to crush it, shatter its hull, and swallow Ra whole. Darkness surged like a tidal wave, threatening to extinguish the sun's light and undo the work of creation. Mortals above slept, unaware that the fate of life itself balanced on the edge of this battle. Ra's companions acted swiftly. Set, the god of strength and chaos's counterforce, leapt into the attack, his arms striking at Apophis's coils with precision and might. The serpent hissed and writhed, its power immense, but it met the disciplined force of the gods who defended the solar boat. Thoth, the god of wisdom, whispered guidance to Ra, reading the patterns of the underworld and foretelling Apophis's movements, allowing the sun god to navigate the treacherous waters. The eye of Ra, a fiery extension of the sun god's wrath, struck Apophis directly, biting into the serpent's head and driving it back with unrelenting force. Every clash of power sent tremors through the duat, shaking rocks, churning rivers, and echoing like thunder. By dawn, Apophis had been temporarily subdued. Though not defeated, the serpent recoiled, forced to retreat into the shadows. The solar boat emerged into the eastern horizon, and the first sunrise marked Ra's victory, the first proof that light could overcome chaos, but that vigilance would always be required. This battle set the eternal pattern. Night would bring danger, day would bring triumph, and the struggle between Ra and Apophis would shape the rhythm of the universe forever. As Ra sailed through the dark, treacherous waters of the duat, the chaos serpent Apophis coiled closer, its massive body thrashing and spitting shadows that threatened to engulf the solar boat. Every night, this confrontation tested the strength of creation, and tonight was no exception. The very air of the underworld quivered as the gods prepared to defend their king and preserve the balance of the universe. Set, the god of strength and protector of Ra, took the lead. With a roar that echoed through the twisting caverns of the duat, he struck at Apophis's coils, driving the serpent backward with relentless force. His arms were like living pillars, bending and crushing the serpent's attempts to seize the sun god. Beside him, other protective deities lent their power, channeling divine energy to reinforce the boat's hull and keep the solar vessel steady against the chaos that sought to overturn it. Thoth, the god of wisdom and strategy, guided Ra with precise calculations. He studied the movements of Apophis, predicting the serpent's attacks and pointing the solar boat along safe currents. Without Thoth's knowledge, the boat might have been caught in the serpent's coils, lost forever to darkness. The eye of Ra, unleashed in flames of divine wrath, struck at Apophis's head, forcing it to recoil from the solar vessel. Sparks of light and shadow collided in the underworld, illuminating rivers of darkness and rocks jagged as mountains. The gods fought with perfect coordination, each movement reinforcing the other, creating a fortress of divine will around Ra and his boat. By the time the solar boat approached the horizon, Apophis had been temporarily subdued. Exhausted but undefeated, the serpent receded into the depths, leaving the gods victorious. Their defense had preserved creation for another day, proving that Ra's light, combined with divine unity, could triumph even against the most relentless forces of chaos. After a long and harrowing night, Ra's solar boat emerged from the depths of the duat, the first hints of dawn spilling across the horizon. The battle with Apophis, the great serpent of chaos, had tested the sun god and all who defended him. Rivers of shadow had tried to swallow the boat, jagged rocks of the underworld had threatened to tear it apart, and the serpent itself had coiled around the vessel with crushing force. Yet through the combined power of Ra, Set, Thoth, and the eye of Ra, chaos had been held at bay. As the sun's golden light spread across the lands of Geb, the humans below awoke to a new day, their lives spared once again by the triumph of divine order. The skies shimmered in brilliant hues of red, gold, and orange, announcing Ra's victory to all of creation. Every mountain, river, and valley seemed to glow under the reassurance of his light, a promise that chaos could never completely overcome the forces of life and order. Ra's victory was not merely a personal triumph, it was a reaffirmation of Ma'at, the delicate balance of truth, order, and harmony upon which the universe depended. The gods who had aided him stood proud and vigilant, their powers intertwined to maintain the cosmic rhythm. Even Apophis, retreating into the shadowy depths of the Duat, had been reminded of the sun god's supremacy. This victory marked the first in an eternal cycle. Each night, the threat of chaos would rise again, yet each day, Ra would emerge triumphant, bringing light, warmth, and stability to creation. His triumph was both a warning and a lesson. Darkness may challenge life, but the sun's light, guided by wisdom, strength, and vigilance, would always prevail. Ra's victory ensured creation endured, and that the cycle of day and night continued unbroken, eternal, and sacred. As the first rays of light broke across the horizon, a profound sense of renewal swept over the world. After a long night of struggle in the Duat, Ra emerged victorious from his journey through darkness, his golden body blazing with the warmth and brilliance of life itself. The horizon ignited in a fiery glow, signaling the rebirth of dawn and the triumph of order over chaos. Humans stirred in their homes, waking to the reassurance of Ra's light. Farmers felt the warmth on their skin. Rivers sparkled under the sun's reflection, and birds took flight, singing praises to the rising god. Every living being, from the smallest insect to the tallest tree, was touched by the sun's rays, a reminder that life was sustained by the eternal vigilance of Ra. The golden glow of dawn washed over the lands of Geb, illuminating the mountains, valleys, and deserts, bringing clarity where shadows had lingered. The gods looked on from their realms with reverence. Shu maintained the space between sky and earth, while Tefnut's moisture glistened in the morning light, reflecting the sun's brilliance. Geb and Nut, earth and sky, seemed to breathe with renewed life, strengthened by the daily reaffirmation of balance. Even Hawthorne, who once unleashed her wrath upon humanity, now stood calm, her presence a protective embrace rather than a threat. Dawn was more than the start of a day, it was the daily resurrection of creation itself. Each sunrise reminded mortals and gods alike that life, light, and order were eternal, but required vigilance to maintain. With Ra at the helm, the solar boat slicing through the horizon, chaos had been defeated once again, and the world was reborn in golden radiance. The dawn was not just a moment, it was the eternal promise of life and hope under the watchful eye of the sun god. With dawn fully risen, Ra's golden light bathed the world in warmth and clarity, marking the continuation of a cycle that had endured since the first sunrise. This cycle of day and night, light and darkness, creation and struggle became the heartbeat of the universe, eternal, unbroken, and sacred. Ra's journey across the sky was more than movement. It was the eternal rhythm upon which all life, gods, and mortals depended. Each day, Ra's solar boat carried him from the eastern horizon to the western edge of the sky, illuminating mountains, rivers, and plains, and ensuring that life could flourish under his vigilance. Each night he descended into the duat, facing the darkness and chaos of Apophis, his eternal enemy. This daily confrontation was not just a battle, it was a reaffirmation of order, a test of the universe itself, and a reminder that creation was alive, fragile, and precious. The gods accompanied him, each fulfilling their role to maintain Ma'at. Set defended against chaos, Thoth guided the path of wisdom, and the Eye of Ra enforced justice. For humanity, the cycle of eternity became the foundation of life. Farmers timed their crops by the rising and setting of the sun. Kings and priests aligned rituals with the solar journey. Every dawn was a promise, every dusk a warning, every sunrise a testament to the triumph of light over darkness. The cycle also taught that vigilance, respect for order, and reverence for the divine were essential for survival. Through this eternal rhythm, Ra became more than a god. He became the axis of existence, the guarantee that life, creation, and order would continue forever. The cycle of eternity was not merely a pattern of light and dark, it was the living pulse of the universe, a sacred promise that the sun would rise, chaos would be held at bay, and the harmony of creation would endure for all time. As Ra sailed across the sky in his solar boat, his light touched every corner of the earth, illuminating both the beauty and the fragility of creation. But the sun god's power was not enough alone to sustain the universe. Alongside him traveled Ma'at, the goddess of truth, justice, and cosmic order. She was the principle that ensured balance, the invisible force that gave meaning to Ra's light and purpose to all creation. Ma'at was depicted as a woman with an ostrich feather upon her head, a symbol of balance and fairness. Wherever Ra's golden rays fell, Ma'at's presence ensured that creation remained in harmony. She reminded gods and humans alike that life was governed by rules, that actions had consequences, and that chaos could never be allowed to dominate unchecked. While Ra provided the power of life and the light of the sun, Ma'at provided the structure that made that life sustainable. Together, Ra and Ma'at were inseparable. Every sunrise reaffirmed their partnership. Ra's illumination brought visibility, warmth, and energy, while Ma'at shaped the way that energy and life interacted with the world. Humans, seeing the sun rise and feeling the warmth of its rays, were reminded of the laws of morality, justice, and order. Kings and rulers aligned their decrees with the principles of Ma'at, understanding that leadership under the sun god's guidance required fairness and responsibility. Without Ma'at, Ra's light alone could not hold back chaos. Without Ma'at, Ma'at's principles would exist in theory, but have no power to enforce life or order. Together, they created the perfect balance, one of strength tempered by wisdom, brilliance guided by fairness, and authority sustained by moral law. Their union ensured that the universe continued to function, that creation flourished, and that the cycle of day, night, and life endured in eternal harmony. Among the many mysteries of the gods, none was more sacred than the hidden name of Ra. The Egyptians believed that names carried power. To know a being's true name was to hold authority over them. Ra, supreme among the gods, had a secret name known only to himself, a name so potent that it contained the essence of his being, the source of his authority, and the power of creation itself.
This hidden name was whispered of in the halls of temples and inscribed in cryptic symbols on the walls of sacred tombs, yet no mortal dared to speak it aloud. To even attempt to reveal it without Ra's permission was to invite destruction, for the secret was bound to the divine order of the cosmos. The gods themselves respected its sanctity, knowing that the sun god's true name was a source of infinite power, a key to both creation and control over the forces of life and death. Ra's hidden name also represented the mystery of the universe. Though mortals could witness his light, feel his warmth, and follow the sun across the sky, the full depth of his being remained unknowable. It was a reminder that divine power was beyond comprehension, and that creation itself rested upon forces unseen and unfathomable. To speak the name would not only reveal the god, but might unravel the delicate balance of Ma'at, shaking the very foundations of life, order, and time. Legends tell that even Ra's hidden name could be used to protect or destroy. Only the most faithful, wise, or courageous could approach the god with knowledge of it, and only in rare moments of need. It was a secret that reinforced the awe, reverence, and respect all beings, gods and humans alike, held for Ra, the sun god who ruled the heavens and maintained the harmony of the universe. The hidden name of Ra was more than a secret. It was the essence of life itself.
Even the mighty Ra, supreme ruler of the heavens and master of creation, was not immune to the plots of those who sought to challenge him. Among humans and gods alike, whispers of rebellion and envy sometimes festered into action. One fateful day, a scheme was set into motion, a plot to poison the sun god himself, to dim his light and throw the universe into chaos. The poison was not ordinary. It was crafted by cunning beings who sought to exploit the hidden vulnerabilities of Ra's divine essence. It carried the power to cloud his mind, weaken his brilliance, and disrupt the delicate balance he maintained across creation. When Ra unknowingly ingested the toxic substance, his golden body flickered and the solar boat wavered across the sky. The light of the sun dimmed, and darkness crept across the earth like a silent shadow. Humans and gods below sensed the change. The warmth of life faltered, and fear rippled through the world. Ra's pain was not only physical. The poison struck at his divine authority. The eye of Ra flared in anger, seeking the source of this treachery, while Set and Thoth acted swiftly to stabilize the solar boat and counter the venom's effect. Even the serpent Apophis stirred, sensing weakness, attempting to strike while Ra's light was diminished. The balance of Ma'at, the order that governed the cosmos, hung by a thread. Through cunning, divine strength, and the wisdom of his companions, Ra slowly overcame the poison. His brilliance returned, stronger and more vigilant than before. Humanity learned a stark lesson that day. Even the most powerful god could be threatened, but the forces of order and life, guided by Ra, would always prevail. The poison, though temporary in effect, reminded all creation that vigilance and loyalty were essential, and that chaos would never triumph as long as the sun god endured.
Among the gods, few were as clever and determined as Isis, the goddess of magic, wisdom, and cunning. She had watched Ra for eons, admiring his power, yet understanding that even the mightiest of gods were bound by the rules of existence. Ra's hidden name, the secret that contained the essence of his being and the source of his authority, was a mystery that even other deities could not penetrate. But Isis, with her unparalleled knowledge of magic and her relentless curiosity, resolved to uncover it. Isis approached Ra under the guise of reverence, praising the sun god's brilliance and wisdom. Day after day she observed him, learning his habits, understanding the rhythms of the solar boat, and studying the balance of light and shadow that defined his presence. With patience and precision, she prepared the spells and incantations necessary to compel the revelation of a god's secret. Her magic was subtle, intricate, and deeply powerful, the kind that only a goddess of her caliber could wield without disrupting creation itself. Finally, during a moment of trust and divine vulnerability, Ra spoke his secret name. It was a sound that carried the power of creation, a name that could summon life, bind the forces of chaos, and command the obedience of all beings. Isis listened carefully, memorizing every syllable, understanding that with this knowledge she would hold unparalleled influence, not over Ra himself, but over the delicate balance of existence. With the secret name now in her possession, Isis gained the ability to heal, protect, and influence even the supreme sun god. Yet she wielded it wisely, understanding that such power was a responsibility, not a tool of conquest. Through her cunning, she demonstrated that intelligence and magic could match raw divine strength, and that even the secrets of the gods were not beyond the reach of those who dared to seek them. Isis's triumph became a lesson to all. Knowledge could rival power, and wisdom was itself a form of immortality.
After Isis gained the secret name of Ra, the balance among the gods began to subtly shift. Knowledge had always been power, but now the cleverness of one deity rivaled the raw authority of the sun god himself. Ra remained the supreme ruler of the heavens, yet the revelation of his hidden name introduced a new dynamic. Even the most eternal of gods could be influenced, challenged, or aided through cunning and wisdom. The other gods took notice immediately. Thoth, the god of wisdom, observed the change with approval, recognizing that intellect could serve as a counterbalance to strength. Seth, ever ambitious, watched with suspicion, wary that such knowledge could upset the established order of Ma'at. Hathor, tempered from her earlier fury, remained vigilant, aware that the shifting balance of power might ignite new conflicts. Even Geb and Nut, earth and sky, felt the subtle tension ripple through the cosmos as divine interactions became more complex and less predictable. This shift was not just about dominance, it was about influence and responsibility. Isis now possessed the ability to heal, protect, or manipulate Ra's power in moments of crisis, giving her a pivotal role in maintaining the order of creation. Her wisdom became a vital counterweight to the brute force of the sun god, demonstrating that creation required not just strength, but strategy, foresight, and discretion. Mortals, unknowingly, also felt the effects of this power shift. The patterns of day and night, the fertility of the land, and the flow of the Nile continued as usual. Yet subtle changes hinted at the growing influence of magic and intellect in shaping the universe. The gods learned that eternal strength alone was insufficient. Power must be balanced with wisdom, and knowledge could alter destinies even among immortals. Thus, the cosmos entered a new era, where cunning and intelligence became as essential to creation as divine strength, and the balance of power among the gods was forever transformed.
After eons of guiding creation,
Battling chaos and illuminating the world, Ra approached the final stage of his divine journey, the unification with Atum, the primordial creator god from whom all life had first emerged. Atum, the self-created deity who existed before time, space, and order, had shaped the universe from the waters of Nun, giving rise to the first gods and establishing the foundation for Ma'at. Now, Ra, the sun god and ruler of the heavens, sought to merge his brilliance with Atum's timeless essence, completing the cycle of creation and becoming one with the ultimate source of all existence. This union was both cosmic and mystical. Ra's golden form, radiant and commanding, approached Atum's shadowed, all-encompassing presence. Light met primordial stillness. Order embraced the raw potential of creation. As they merged, the heavens trembled, stars shifted in their courses, and the Nile itself shimmered with newfound energy. The two gods' essences intertwined, and Ra's solar light was infused with the infinite wisdom and timeless power of Atum. This union transformed Ra into Ra-Atum, a deity embodying both the creative force that had birthed the universe and the sustaining light that illuminated it daily. From this fusion, the cosmos became perfectly balanced. Night and day, chaos and order, life and death, all were reconciled under a single harmonious divine principle. The solar boat now carried more than light. It carried the eternal energy of existence itself, ensuring that the cycles of the heavens, the fertility of the land, and the rhythm of life continued without end. Mortals and gods alike felt the effects of this sacred union. Humanity prospered, temples glowed brighter, and the divine hierarchy was reaffirmed, now strengthened by Ra's unbreakable link to the source of all creation. Through this merging, the sun god achieved ultimate unity with Atum, completing the eternal cycle of creation and light. After merging with Atum, Ra-Atum assumed a new role in the cosmos, not only as the ruler of the heavens, but also as the distant, all-seeing sun, whose light touched every corner of the universe. No longer walking among mortals directly, Ra became a divine presence observed through his brilliance, guiding life, growth, and order from afar. His distance was not absence, it was the symbol of his eternal vigilance, a reminder that his power was both constant and untouchable. From the high heavens, Ra's rays penetrated deserts, mountains, and rivers, illuminating the lands of Geb and the heavens themselves. Humans, though unable to see him directly, felt his presence through warmth, light, and the cyclical rhythm of day and night. Farmers planted crops according to his rising and setting. Sailors navigated rivers by his reflection, and priests aligned rituals and offerings with the solar path. Even the smallest creatures depended on his distant light, showing that creation itself was intertwined with the sun god's eternal journey. The gods, too, recognized Ra's distant power. Shu held the sky aloft. Tefnut brought moisture to sustain life, and Hathor maintained her vigilance, tempered Mao by wisdom rather than fury. The solar boat sailed the heavens daily, carrying Ra-Atum across the sky, while nightly journeys through the Duat ensured that Apophis and the forces of chaos remained subdued. The sun god's distance allowed mortals to develop, make choices, and grow under his guidance, while his eternal oversight prevented creation from collapsing into disorder. Ra, as the distant sun, became a symbol of both power and wisdom, omnipresent yet untouchable, nurturing yet vigilant, guiding creation with light and authority. Mortals and gods alike understood that while he might be distant, Ra's influence shaped every sunrise, every season, and every heartbeat of the world. His light was eternal, his authority absolute, and his presence both awe-inspiring and life-sustaining. With Ra's light illuminating the world and his authority eternal, humanity began to understand the divine connection between mortals and gods. Among all humans, the pharaohs of Egypt held a unique place. They were seen as the living sons of Ra, chosen to rule by divine will. From the moment they ascended the throne, they were more than kings. They were representatives of the sun god on earth, tasked with maintaining Ma'at, the cosmic order, and ensuring that the blessings of Ra flowed through the land. The pharaohs were believed to carry Ra's essence within them. Their crowns, scepters, and ceremonial regalia were symbols of this divine connection, signifying their role as both rulers and intermediaries between the gods and humanity. Temples were constructed in their honor, not just as places of worship for Ra, but also as centers where pharaohs communicated with the gods through prayer, sacrifice, and ritual. By aligning themselves with Ra, they reinforced the stability of their kingdoms and the harmony of the cosmos. This divine lineage meant that pharaohs were held to extraordinary standards. Their decisions affected not only mortal lives, but also the balance of creation itself. A just pharaoh, following the principles of Ma'at, would bring prosperity, fertile fields, and peace. A ruler who strayed from the path risked famine, chaos, and disorder. In this way, the pharaoh's authority was inseparable from Ra's light. They were vessels of divine power, their very existence a reflection of the sun god's eternal presence. Through the pharaohs, humanity witnessed Ra's influence in tangible form. Every sunrise was a reminder of the divine order, and every decree of the pharaoh reinforced the bond between heaven and earth. The sons of Ra served as living symbols of the sun god's authority, ensuring that the blessings of light, life, and order continued to flow through Egypt for generations to come. As Ra's light traveled across the heavens, humanity sought to honor Ra in ways that would last for eternity. Across Egypt, great temples dedicated to Ra began to rise from the sands, monumental testaments to devotion, reverence, and the enduring power of the divine. These temples were not merely buildings, they were sacred bridges connecting mortals to the eternal presence of the sun god. The most magnificent of these structures were aligned with the path of the sun, so that at dawn the first rays would pierce through the temple entrances, illuminating the inner sanctum where statues and shrines to Ra stood. Columns carved with hieroglyphs told stories of creation, chaos, and triumph, depicting the sun god's journey through the sky and the underworld. Every stone was imbued with meaning, every carving a reminder that the power of Ra flowed through the world and into the lives of those who honored him. Priests and priestesses performed daily rituals, chanting hymns and offering incense, bread, and sacred oils to sustain Ra's presence on earth. Festivals marked the rising and setting of the sun, celebrating life, fertility, and order. The temples also served as centers of learning, where scribes recorded the cycles of the sun, astronomers studied the heavens, and the wisdom of the gods was preserved in writing, magic, and ritual. These temples became focal points of Egyptian culture, politics, and spirituality. Pharaoh used them to demonstrate their divine connection as sons of Ra, reinforcing their authority while maintaining Ma'at.
travelers and commoners alike came to witness the grandeur, finding inspiration, protection, and guidance under the sun god's eternal gaze. The rise of the temples of Ra ensured that the sun god's influence would remain visible and tangible, a permanent presence in the world he had created. Through their towering walls, golden shrines, and sacred rituals, humanity honored Ra, keeping the divine light alive on earth for generations and ensuring that the worship of the sun god endured long after the sun itself had set. The sun rose over the Nile, and with it came Ra's life-giving light, touching every corner of Egyptian society. From the smallest village to the grandest city, humans felt the presence of the sun god in every aspect of daily life. Farmers relied on his rays to nourish the crops that fed the kingdom, while herders guided their livestock by the sun's path. Ra's light dictated work, rest, and ritual, weaving the rhythm of the day into the very heartbeat of civilization. In homes, people offered prayers at small altars, lighting incense and presenting bread or water to honor the sun god. Children learned stories of Ra's journey across the sky, of his battles with Apophis, and the wisdom of the gods who maintained Ma'at. These tales were more than myths. They were instructions, reminders of order, respect, and the consequences of chaos. Each sunrise was a lesson, each sunset a testament to the balance between light and darkness. In the streets and marketplaces, merchants and artisans acknowledged Ra's presence, thanking him for the prosperity of their trade and the bounty of the land. Craftsmen carved amulets and statues in his likeness, ensuring that even the smallest piece of daily life carried his divine influence. Pharaohs, as sons of Ra, oversaw the kingdom under his watchful eye, their decrees intended to mirror the justice and order the sun god represented. Festivals, too, celebrated Ra's central role in human life. People gathered to witness the solar boat's symbolic passage across the sky, offering songs, dances, and feasts to honor the eternal light. Through work, worship, and celebration, Ra's presence became inseparable from the lives of mortals. Every breath, every task, and every step taken under the sun reminded Egyptians that Ra's light was not distant. It was the very essence sustaining life, order, and hope. As the sun climbed high into the sky, Ra's golden gaze stretched across the lands of Egypt, touching deserts, rivers, mountains, and villages alike. His journey across the heavens was more than a daily routine. It was an eternal watch, a sacred duty to oversee creation and ensure that Ma'at, the balance of truth and order, was maintained. From his solar boat, Ra observed gods and mortals alike, guiding the world with light, wisdom, and unwavering authority. The humans below moved through their day with a quiet awareness of the sun god's presence. Farmers tilled their fields, feeling the warmth that nourished their crops. Traders traveled along the Nile, using the sunlight to measure time and direction. Priests and scribes performed rituals, honoring Ra and reinforcing the harmony of the world. Even the pharaohs, sons of the sun god, understood that their authority came from Ra's eternal vigilance. Their actions reflected the god's oversight, and they bore the responsibility of upholding order in his absence. In the heavens, Ra's journey was not without peril. Though Apophis had been subdued, the serpent of chaos lingered in the Duat, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Each night, Ra would descend into the underworld, confronting darkness and disorder to ensure that the sun would rise again. The gods accompanied him, lending strength, wisdom, and vigilance to the eternal mission. Ra's eternal watch became a symbol of both power and protection. His light reminded the world that life, creation, and order depended on his presence. Mortals and gods alike understood that the cycles of the sun were more than a natural rhythm. They were the heartbeat of the universe itself. Through day and night, Ra's watch ensured that chaos remained contained and that the harmony of creation endured forever under his unyielding gaze. After countless eons of guiding creation, illuminating the world, and battling chaos in the duat, Ra approached a moment unlike any before, the final sunset of his eternal journey. For millennia, he had risen each dawn, bringing light, life, and order to mortals and gods alike. Now, as his golden solar boat descended toward the western horizon for the last time, a profound stillness settled across the land of Egypt. The skies blazed with colors more vivid than any seen before, deep crimson, molten gold, and violet streaks that reflected the power of the sun god in his ultimate form. Mountains, deserts, and the Nile shimmered beneath this extraordinary light, as if all of creation recognized the significance of the moment. Humans paused in their daily tasks, priests held their rituals in reverent silence, and pharaohs, sons of Ra, stood in awe, understanding that the world was witnessing a divine transition. As Ra's boat sank toward the horizon, the gods gathered, honoring their king. Set stood vigilant, guarding against the shadows that would normally threaten the sun. Thoth, wise and calm, recorded the final journey, ensuring that the story of Ra's life and deeds would endure. Hathor's tempered presence radiated protective warmth, and even Apophis, the eternal serpent of chaos, recoiled before the majesty of Ra's last descent. When the sun finally vanished beneath the horizon, the world was bathed in a quiet darkness, not one of fear, but of reverence. Mortals and gods alike understood that Ra had completed his ultimate cycle. His light would live on in memory, in the rhythm of day and night, and in the eternal teachings of Ma'at. The sun's final setting was not an end, but the fulfillment of a legacy, creation preserved, order maintained, and the eternal story of life illuminated forever by the sun god who had made the world. Even as Ra's solar boat disappeared beneath the western horizon, darkness did not bring fear, for the people of Egypt knew that night was only a part of the eternal cycle. The setting sun was a promise, a guarantee that light would return. This was the sacred lesson of Ra. No matter how long or deep the darkness, dawn would always come. The promise of dawn became a symbol of hope, resilience, and renewal for mortals and gods alike. In the quiet of night, Ra began his journey through the duat, the mysterious underworld where chaos waited. The serpent Apophis stirred in the shadows, seeking to swallow the sun god and extinguish his light. But Ra, aided by Set, Thoth, and the vigilant eye of Ra, moved with determination. Every night was a test, every encounter with darkness a reaffirmation of his strength, wisdom, and authority. The world above slept unaware, but life itself depended on Ra's vigilance. Mortals saw only the absence of light, yet priests and pharaohs knew the deeper truth. The sun god was tirelessly working to secure the next day. The cycle of sunset and sunrise became an eternal rhythm, teaching humanity that life is defined by both trials and triumphs, by darkness and illumination. The promise of dawn was more than a natural phenomenon. It was a moral and spiritual lesson, reminding all that patience, faith, and respect for Ma'at ensured survival and prosperity. Finally, as the first rays of light began to pierce the horizon, the world stirred in anticipation. Birds took flight, rivers sparkled, and the land seemed to breathe again. Ra's triumph over the night reaffirmed the balance of the universe, proving that no darkness could last forever. The promise of dawn was eternal, and with it, life, hope, and order endured under the unyielding watch of the sun god.
As the sun rose once more, painting the sky in golden and crimson hues, Ra's legacy shone brighter than ever. For millennia, the sun god had guided creation, battled chaos, and ensured the balance of Ma'at across the universe. His solar boat traversed the heavens daily, illuminating the lands of Egypt, nurturing life, and reminding mortals and gods alike of the eternal cycle of day and night. The world, shaped and sustained by his brilliance, thrived under his vigilant gaze. Ra's influence extended beyond the physical light he cast. Through pharaohs, temples, and rituals, humanity learned the meaning of order, responsibility, and reverence for life. His battles with Apophis taught that chaos could never fully conquer creation, while his union with Atum and the granting of his hidden name to Isis revealed that wisdom, knowledge, and magic were also vital forces in maintaining harmony. Every sunrise, every harvest, and every act of devotion echoed the eternal presence of the sun god. Even as generations passed, Ra's story remained alive through myths, teachings, and celebrations. The sun's journey across the sky became a symbol of hope, courage, and the promise that light would always triumph over darkness. Mortals looked to him for guidance, gods collaborated to uphold his order, and the universe continued in perfect rhythm. The legacy of Ra is eternal, a reminder that life, order, and creation are sacred, that vigilance and wisdom are necessary, and that light can overcome even the darkest chaos. His story is a beacon for all who seek understanding, balance, and inspiration. If you enjoyed this journey through the world of Ra, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. Your support helps keep these stories alive and spreads the light of knowledge to everyone watching.